Hi, and welcome back. Batumi from Chaos Devices has been a popular choice for a quad flexible LFO for quite some time, and now they've made it better. It's still a great choice for a quad LFO. It has powerful modes that place the LFOs in relation to each other, but it can now handle audio rates and tracks 1 volt per octave. It also offers random voltages and wavefolding, and a lot more. In this video, I'll explain the module as if it's new and cover all the basics. If you'd like to see more, keep an eye on Tom Churchill's channel. He plans to do a video on the new Batumi soon and has great modular content in general. But now, let's dive right in. I'll start with a quick overview of the modules, but you can jump to the next chapter if you're here for the patches. First off, Batumi and Poti are available separately, and all the features that were on the old Poti are now available on Batumi itself, making it an absolute powerhouse. So I'll tackle the features of Batumi on its own first. It holds 4 LFOs that can all operate completely independent. Each LFO has a frequency control slider with a frequency CV input. The frequency range is improved all the way up to audio rates, and the CV input now tracks 1 volt per octave, so you can use the channels as oscillators. There's also a reset or sync input, and you can choose which one you want to use for all channels by pressing both buttons here. Then each LFO has 3 simultaneous outputs available. The sine and square wave output have a fixed shape, but there's also an assign output. You can use this button to select which wave is used. There's a triangle, falling and rising saw, as well as a trapezoid, stepped random and slewed random option. These random modes follow the frequency of the LFO and are great additions as they open up a lot of organic modulation options. The final and great trick of Batumi is the mode switch. Besides using the module as 4 independent LFOs, which is called the free mode, there's also a phase mode, as well as a divide and new multiply mode. In those modes, the first slider with CV input controls the frequency of all 4 LFOs simultaneously, and the other sliders and CV inputs either control the phase offset, division or multiplication of that LFO relative to the first. The new Poti expander adds a lot of unique features to Batumi. First off, you can use this button to select one or all of the LFOs, indicated with the green LED. With Poti attached, you can now set the assigned wave shape per LFO. So for example, you can have the first 2 set to a saw, the third to trapezoid and the fourth to random. Furthermore, for the selected LFO, there's an attenuator for the CV input here, as well as output attenuators for the sine and assign waveforms. You can use the knobs to control those settings for each LFO individually. When switching between LFOs, the pots won't match, but there's a clever 2 color-coded pickup system for each pot. On top of that, each LFO has a wave shape CV input. You can select which of its shapes is modulated with the switches. The sine offers wavefolding, the square has pulse width modulation, and the CV to assign selects which waveform is used. In free mode, all 4 LFOs are independent. This is probably how most people will end up using the module, and the new features add a lot to the possibilities. Here's a simple voice and an example of how a few sine wave LFOs can add movement to it. One LFO is used to modulate the shape of the envelope. One LFO is used to modulate the filter. One LFO is applying frequency modulation to the oscillator close to audio rates. And the fourth LFO is modulating the frequency of two of the others. Modulation like this turns a steady voice into something that has a lot of dynamics over time. Having access to random voltages as well opens up a world of easy generative modulation. Here's the exact same basic voice with a sine LFO performing FM. This time, a smooth random LFO is used to modulate the frequency, and the sine output of that LFO is used to modulate the envelope shape. Again, a sine and triangle output of one LFO are used to modulate the frequency of two others. The fourth LFO is used in stepped random mode and transposing the sequencer. A copy of the clock is sent through a divider to sync that LFO to the master clock. Organic waves are great for drones as well. Here, a stereo oscillator is sent through a stereo filter for a basic sound. Again, two sine wave LFOs are modulating the oscillator and filter frequency. This time, a sine and smooth random are used to modulate the frequency of those oscillators. And the fourth sine oscillator is modulating the shape parameter of a sine LFO. This means both the frequency is modulated and the sine is folded. This leads to very smooth organic voltages. I could fill videos with ideas for basic LFOs and random voltages. In fact, I did. You can have a look at these slightly older but patch idea packed videos later if you like. The stable audio rates add another dimension. Here, a square wave LFO is used as oscillator, sent through a mixer and filter. Another audio rate LFO is set to random voltages, which creates noise at audio rates, and this is sent to the mixer as well. A manual offset voltage is used to modulate the frequency of that LFO to increase the pitch of the noise. The oscillator is sequenced and an envelope is modulating the filter. Another sine LFO is modulating the speed of the envelope. And a random voltage from that same LFO is modulating the filter as well. Finally, another sine LFO is modulating the shape of the LFO used as oscillator. This is set to square, so it's creating pulse width modulation. Phase is an interesting mode that lets you create things like inverted and quadrature outputs, but it's also great for complex wave shapes. In phase mode, all four LFOs follow the frequency of the first LFO. The others can each have a unique shift of phase relative to the first. You can shift a phase to create an inverted waveform output. Use multiple 90-degree shifts to create a quadrature output, or of course create versions with subtle shifts. Here you see a simple oscillator filter voice. The filter output is sent to two VCAs to create stereo panning. The sine wave of the first LFO is used to modulate one VCA, and a phase-shifted sine wave is used to modulate the other VCA. The phase is set to 180 degrees, so the second LFO effectively creates an inverted version of the first. An external LFO is added to modulate the phase of the second LFO. The outputs of Batumi are sent to a scope. Slowly shifting the phase has the effect of subtle frequency changes. But fast modulation leads to complex wave shapes. Here's the same setup, but two phase-shifted versions are used. If you use other sines with different shifts to modulate the phase of the others, you create new shapes with complex waveforms that stay in sync with the master frequency. This trick also works with wave shaping, of course. Here's a more extreme patch. A simple voice is sent to 3 resonant bandpass filters divided over the stereo field. One sine wave is modulating the oscillator's waveform, the other 3 the frequency of the bandpass filters. The phases are set to create a quadrature output, making a modulation wave. On top of that, all assigned outputs are set to triangle, and these are modulating the shape of the next LFO in line to add waveform complexity. Phase-shifted LFOs are great for all sorts of subtle shifting patterns. Here, 2 stereo oscillators are sent through 2 stereo filters. A single sequencer is tuning both oscillators. The sequencer's clock is used to sync the lead LFO. Its square output is used to modulate one side of one of the voices. All other sides are modulated by square-shaped phase-shifted versions. To add some subtle shifting, 2 more LFOs are used to modulate the phase of one LFO on each voice. Divide and Mult mode are very similar. Both are great for things like synced modulation, pattern and clock duties. In both modes, all 4 LFOs follow the frequency of the first LFO. In divide mode, you can set a custom division for each of the others. For example, a divide by 2, 3 and 4. But more divisions are available. In Mult mode, the principle is the same. More likely, you want to set the base frequency a bit slower though, as the other LFOs can be set to multiplications. These have the same range of options. The divide mode is my favorite for calm synced patterns, drones and melodies. Here, a master LFO and 4 divisions are modulating 2 stereo oscillators through 2 stereo filters. The lead LFO is modulating the first oscillator with a sine wave and the shape of the second oscillator with a smooth random voltage. A divide by 3 sine is modulating the shape of the second oscillator as well. A divide by 4 square is used to modulate the shape of the first oscillator even more. And the sine wave from that division is used to modulate a filter. A divide by 16 sine is modulating the other filter. And finally, a square from that LFO is sent to a clock divider and then on to modulate the frequency of the second oscillator. It's a lot of fun to add and expand on patches like this and make Batumi the center of self-playing patches. Here, a square of the master LFO is used to drive a sequencer tuning the first voice. The square from the divide by 3 is used to gate an ADSR envelope, modulating the filter in that voice. The smooth random from the divide by 4 is modulating the shape of the ADSR. And finally, the random voltage from the divide by 16 is modulating the frequency of the master LFO, which influences the speed of the whole setup. Of course, simpler applications are fun as well. Here, 4 square divisions are used to trigger samples. This works like a voltage-controlled clock divider. Simple LFOs or looping envelopes can be used to modulate the clock divisions and create interesting patterns. Similarly, the clock multiply mode can be used to create ratchets. Here, a multiply by 3 square wave is driving a simple voice with sequencer, including a clocked ADSR. A multiply by 8 square is triggering a plucky envelope, also used to modulate the filter. The lead LFO's random voltage is used to modulate the multiplication of that LFO, creating ratchets. Finally, a multiply by 1 LFO has a random voltage modulating the wave shape of the oscillator, and a square out is modulating the range of the sequencer. I added some delay to this patch to make it shine. It's a lot of fun to mess with speeds and the clock in setups like these. Here, the multiply by 3 is used to drive the sequencer, but a random voltage of that output can be used to modulate the frequency of the LFO that is factually controlling the speed of the entire patch. It's fun to experiment with audio rates in all modes. Here, a sequencer is tuning the lead oscillator with the 3 others in Mult mode, which means they follow the tuning of the first. Each is sent through a low-pass filter and pairs are mixed to create a stereo output. The sequencer is gating an ADSR, modulating all filters at the same time. The sequencer's clock is also driving another step voltage pattern, modulating the multiplication of one oscillator, and a sample and hold circuit modulating another. Finally, an LFO is used to modulate the pulse width of the first oscillator, and another LFO is used to modulate the folding of the fourth oscillator. Let me know about your favorite patches in the comments, either with the old Batumi or the new one. In the meantime, if you'd like to learn more, have a look here, and as always, smash that like, subscribe and bell button if you want to see more modular content from me. But that's it for now, thanks for watching, and see you next time.